all.
Wow.
So imagine hiring an unlimited somebody who could do something better than all humans at that rate, that never had to take a break, didn't have to have a lunch break, union, everything else, at under $5 an hour.
Welcome to AI Unchained. I am Guy Swan. This is my journey into the world of intelligent technology. I am so stoked to finally launch this. I hope you guys are excited as I am. I've been going down this rabbit hole at an insane pace. The amount to unpack is just incredible. It's moving way faster than I can keep up with already. So this is me trying to build something concrete out of it. I'm going to try to use all the AI tools that I know of to make this show and then break down in both podcast and video content a lot of the tools that I'm using and understanding, particularly in the conversations and the guests that we have on this show. I want to make sense of the rise of AI and what our relationship to it is. Is this going to be another top-down centralized system of control where we're plugging into somebody else's server and it's reading everything that we're doing on our computer? Or can this be a way to liberate us from those systems? And I think that choice is ours, and the focus of this show will be toward the latter, is how do we explore. We will explore all the tools, but there will be a heavy focus on open source and self-hosting. And as I particularly I'm sitting right here in front of my AI machine, the monster computer that I'm putting together to be the backbone of this podcast and all of the experimenting that we do. And I hope you guys enjoy and come on this journey with me. And I could not think of anyone better for the first conversation on this show than Jeff Booth, the legendary author of The Price of Tomorrow, especially with the commentary lately being around, should we pause AI research? Now we've got an AI czar, and what does that even mean? Does that even make sense to ask that question? And should we have seen this coming? Should this have been obvious that we are here? And what does this mean for society? How do we make sense of the changes that are being unleashed? So we are going to get into it with the first episode with Jeff Booth, A New Frontier. I hope you enjoy it. How you been, man? We haven't talked I hadn't seen you in a year or some change,
know.
man. It's been a while.
Busy, but great, like really great.
Good busy. Busy. Love it.
Doing the stuff I'm loving with Ego Death, the
Sweet.
like traveling on with Bitcoin related stuff, like loving it.
Yeah. What is? Yeah. Tell me about the Ego Death thing. It's landed in front of me like at different points. Like I've heard of it, but I don't really know anything about it.
So I wanted to port more of my time. I've said this on multiple podcasts lately, but I felt I was being a hypocrite. Okay. And 90% of my time was existing boards, companies that I'd invested in or founded or anything else in the fiat world. Mm-hmm. And then 10% of my time was talking on podcasts about what was happening. And I realized I needed to spend, if I wanted to help the world move forward on this, I needed to invest my time and money in helping that happen. Then a really good friend of mine came to me and wanted to start originally a venture fund in crypto. And I laughed at him, and I said, "You got a lot of work to do." But here's the beauty: like he's a super capable guy, and so he just went down the rabbit hole. He tried every other crypto project, or not every other, but lots. He realized they're all a self-referential loop, and they're all worth nothing in the end. And he came to, and then he came back to me and he said, "I get it. I totally get it."
Wow.
And we thought where layer 2 was and what things were happening. Now there's an opportunity to really accelerate things. So we started, Nico, Andy, and myself started a venture fund to be able to invest in the builders.
Sweet. Okay. Hell yeah. So that's been like a main focus lately.
Main focus, yeah. The
Yeah.
obviously, I'm still doing this. I'm traveling and everything,
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
and they're
Yeah.
running I would say the top of the funnel. But the beautiful thing is now I get to spend. I'm joining board, so I'm on the boards of Breeze. I'm on the board of Fetty, and
Nice. Nice.
and
Yeah.
and I get to spend more time with all of the great founders in this space, building it forward.
Sweet. That's awesome. Hell
Yeah,
yeah.
it's so cool.
Yeah. You're gonna be at Bitcoin 2023, right? You're
Yeah,
speaking.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
You're going to be
Well,
there as
shit.
well, right?
I'll see you there. Yeah. I'll see you in like a week or so.
Yeah, perfect.
Oh my god, it really is a week.
It's crazy.
It's the
I was
10th.
just I was at Sailors last week, so Sailors back home, then for a week, and then going there.
Sweet. Well, let me give you a breakdown of like what this podcast is. So, it's obviously AI centered, but I have felt in everything that I have dug through and the stuff that I've watched about it is that there is a perspective that I think is incredibly unrepresented. And even people in the libertarian community have kind of echoed a lot of this like knee jerk, we have to control it, we need to put this on pause sort of mentality. And I feel like I don't know of any time in history in which we reacted to something and made major decisions because we were afraid and did not understand where we were going, in which the results were positive. Like I can't think of one solid example of that being the case. And that's what this feels like to me. And open source has really exploded since the meta weights, the llama, the language model that they have,
Yeah,
dropped, and then obviously stable diffusion dropped previously. Like the explosion and the expansion of these AI tools in the open source side of things has been fascinating to watch. And it seems to iterate and feedback on itself a lot faster and in a far more curated and purposeful direction or purposeful way than these giant centralized models that are just trying to stick as many billions or trillions of parameters as they
parameters. And
possibly can in them. And so I kind of wanted to take that perspective, is that I actually think open source has a runway here. Like they actually have it actually has the potential to outpace, and that lock-in network effect that we're used to with platforms and centralized social media actually might not apply here. And that this is a fundamentally different technology. And I know that you are basically the guy when it comes to trying to make sense of these exponential trends and where things are headed. And I just thought I could not think of anybody who would be a better first guest to kind of expand on both the philosophy or the potential of this, and then also just kind of the chaos of where things are moving and how quickly things are changing and what this is essentially doing to that, like where we are in that curve, so to speak.
yeah,
So that's the short version, I guess.
love love it, love it. I think it's a really rich space with lots to talk about, and it's connected to Bitcoin because of the very same thing. Both
Highly connected to Bitcoin. In fact, one of the really beautiful things that I think we're um, opportunities that I hope the Bitcoiners can take advantage of is with things like the Lightning Network and open instant payment networks. We're able to organize in a sort of decentralized collective manner. Like we can get pools of thousands, tens of thousands of people together to share resources, and we can in real time share sats to share those resources.
this
What
is my
can we do
yeah,
with AI tools
totally.
when
This is my entire thesis, right? This is right.
exactly.
Yeah, none of what we're seeing today on AI is a surprise. Like you read my book. I
Yeah.
think I saw you read my book again when all these things
Yeah.
were coming out, and you can see effectively exactly when you're going to hit this
Yeah.
in it and why it continues. And there's no way to stop. You could pretend to stop it. You could
Yeah.
regulate. If you try to regulate it, essentially all you're going to do is you're going to concentrate it in certain people's hands, but it won't actually, that wouldn't work
That is
anyways.
exactly what I think. That is
Yeah.
exactly what I think. But
It's like financial regulation to protect you from losing your money on top of a system designed to steal your money.
exactly,
What do you think
exactly.
would go wrong?
Yeah, nothing, no big deal, no big deal. So I don't know where we started the show right at the beginning of this, but we are. I just want to say welcome to the first episode of AI Unchained, and I want to, since this audience is probably going to be heavy AI and part Bitcoin. I want to. There are probably a lot of people who don't know your thesis, who don't know the model that you lay out in The Price of Tomorrow, your book. Um, so maybe give us a short rundown, and we'll riff back and forth on the ideas a little bit before we kind of get into the meat of the show.
Sure, and it's actually a relatively simple idea, and it's so complicated to understand because we're used to looking at the world a different way, and we're going through a change in society, and obviously, and that phase changes literally everything,
Yeah,
and so the central premise of Price of Tomorrow is technology is deflationary. And it's competing against a system that must be inflationary or face collapse. And so you have two forces going exactly in opposite ways. One concentrating wealth at the top. One essentially the rise of the debt and the manipulation of the debt is in response to technology trying to make our lives better and give us more for less. And it's a logical response. It's just the exact inverse of that exponential trend around technology, driving more
mm-hmm.
debt and then more manipulation of money because you can't pay back the debt.
Yeah.
And a
Because you
little
always
deep,
owe the debt plus interest, and the productivity that you get from the debt doesn't even pay off the debt.
yeah,
Like,
but
yeah,
start with productivity. What happens in productivity, and this is related to very much related to AI and
yeah,
what's happening. So in a free market, prices fall to the marginal cost of production,
mm-hmm.
no matter what.
Yeah,
You can regulate an industry for a while, but then that industry will be taken over by someone else who hasn't regulated that industry because while there's a penny of profit in an economic calculation, entrepreneurs race in to try to capture that penny of profit to deliver you more value.
yeah.
And so prices always fall to their marginal cost of production over a long
It's
enough.
a race to the bottom. It's a race to no margin whatsoever between the
Let-
cost and
yeah,
the
but
good itself.
let's go a little bit deeper. It's not a race
Okay.
to the bottom. It's a race to deliver you more value
Yeah.
by you. There
Bottom
is
of
no
price is
bottom
what I
of price. There is
mean. Yeah.
exactly. So essentially every entrepreneur is an economic actor trying to create value. And if their thing doesn't create value and users using it, then it
Mm-hmm.
didn't work and it fails. So all of those things, all of those shots on nets, all of those ideas are trying to create more value for society, and the ones that win do so because they created more value for society, and prices fall as a result. That would be
Mm-hmm.
normal. And each time that happens, and so number one, let's just start there. Prices fall to the marginal cost of production. Everyone in economics knows that's true. Number two, you have exponentially increasing productivity around technology. So you can see what is happening with AI. You can see what's happening right now. AI, I would say people are watching a frame of a movie instead of what the entire movie looks like, and they're surprised by what's happening with AI. But
Yeah.
if you look at the trend, it's been the exact same trend for 50 years. It's just you have to
Mm-hmm.
measure it in log function, and it's an exponential trend. So you can accept. That's actually why it was so easy to chart where we'd be today in my book, because you can see exactly where we would be, and what essentially human intelligence is error correction, and computers are becoming better at that than us. And so you could see where that was going to hit within a couple years and where it was going to keep going. And it's going to keep going. And this has a lot of implications for your podcast and everything else. But people will go, wow, look what it's doing today. And then get scared of everything else and also miss how fast this is happening and the exponential trend that's going to happen in a year
Yeah.
from now. And so prices fall to the marginal cost of production, number one. Two, you have exponentially increasing technology driving prices to the marginal cost of production, which would create most things in society in time would be free. But that makes the debt ever more expensive to pay back. So you couldn't pay it back under that economic model. It's already in, so the global debt is about $400 trillion and it's already
Mm-hmm.
insolvent. So if you have things going to
It's
free
solvent by a huge gap.
by a huge gap, it's crazy insolvent.
You kind of have to laugh because it's so fucking scary.
So we live in a make believe world that
Yeah.
we pretend it's solvent because we pretend we allow governments to essentially decrease the value of our money to pay it back in cheaper terms. That's
Yeah.
the global make believe world. So those two forces are colliding, and they're colliding at an ever faster rate. And so remember in the book I wrote, the 185 in the preceding 20 years, $185 trillion of new additional debt for $46 trillion of economic growth. And I
Mm-hmm.
said specifically in the book, okay, that's bad enough, but people haven't calculated the next leg of this, the exponential function on how much more has to come in and
Yeah.
how much more productivity is supposed to come to you. So we live in
I
a
mean, think about
world.
it. You have to issue more debt just to pay the negative gap, like
That's
between
what I mean.
46 and 183. Not even to continue what we're doing, but just to make sure we're at zero.
Exactly. The hole is so big right now. It's so staggering. And that's why when in 2008, when you see 300 billion and then 700 billion, it turns into 700 billion in TARP. And there's marches on Wall Street. And then
Mm-hmm.
there's no marches for 5 or 6 trillion in 2020. Like it's an
Yeah.
order of magnitude
No big
bigger.
deal.
And by the way, right now it's an order of magnitude bigger. To
Yeah.
fill the gap right now, you'd be talking about tens of trillions of dollars that's
Yeah.
needed right now to be able to keep this thing in check. So you got two different systems colliding and moving faster and faster apart. In one system, that the prices will fall forever. But the only thing that could measure that system would be something with fixed currency units like Bitcoin. So
Yeah.
what's happening in Bitcoin? People think it's going up in price, but measured from Bitcoin, it isn't. What's happening is all prices are following an economic law that prices fall to the marginal cost of production and will do so forever. So, so it's actually telling you the truth of measuring the market versus what's happening. So that's the general premise I laid out in the book. What
Mm-hmm.
what was happening in society in that phase transition,
Yeah.
and I also dedicated a couple chapters to AI because AI was a general purpose technology that touched every single other thing that was because of Moore's laws and Moore's law and the trend that you could see, that log trend that you could see in AI. You could predict where we would be and where we'd be next year and where we'd be and what impact it would have on the existing financial system as we went through.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's that. Um, no, I totally like it's such a fascinating way to it's kind of incredible how completely polar opposite it is to the normal person's view of things. Like especially because there's so many things at odds, like to try to make sense of a deflationary currency, like when the just the very
Let me.
idea.
I want to hear this, but just I want to make
Yeah,
sure we don't say. To me, it's not a
it's
deflationary currency. It's a
it's deflationary
neutral.
technology on a static currency.
The currency is a neutral reserve
Yeah,
currency or neutral with unlimited velocity.
yeah,
It's describing the free market and prices
yes,
falling to the marginal cost of production. That's what it's
yeah,
describing because it's neutral.
yeah. There's a problem with always trying to use their language,
Yeah,
you know,
totally,
that
totally.
it's simply inaccurate. You know,
Yeah,
you're trying to say deflation, but that's not what it is. The
yeah,
technology is deflation, and the currency or the monetary unit is static, and therefore you see the technological deflation through the value of the money.
bingo.
Um, And that's exactly why, I mean, I've argued and gone back and forth with multiple economists and stuff on Twitter about this exact thing, is the idea that, like, they say, oh, well, everybody will just hoard money or whatever, and
You
like
won't buy
completely
shares.
misunderstand that, like, the deflation, the increase in the value of the money is the consequence. It's just the gauge that's telling us. It's like the altimeter in a plane, right? Is that when you move the plane, the altimeter adjusts to tell you what's happening, but you can't move the altimeter to make the plane go up and down. It's the response mechanism. So what you have to say that, like, we're all going to be poor because money's just going to go up in value is literally failing to recognize that money going up in value is the result. It's the indication that we got wealthier. It's the exact opposite of what they claim it is.
You just nailed it. It's productivity. So
Yeah.
you have some crazy ideas out of the existing system too, and as you naturally would expect. And so a good friend of mine is creating. He's probably his as a leading company in artificial general intelligence and robotics today,
Mm-hmm.
merging those two. And so he has actually robots on in stores right now that aren't single purpose robots like you'd see in Amazon that just do shelving or just do picking packing.
Yeah.
You can give it a command that says run the store, and it'll unload the truck, it'll stock the shelves, it'll greet people, it'll do the checkout, and it'll do it increasingly better than humans on the entire store. So it's not, and so when you think about this thing, but when you think about this thing,
Yeah.
um, and all of the use cases today, the AI is largely digital and all of the digital domain and making us better. But there's a physical piece that most of the economy is in, right?
Mm-hmm.
From whether it's agriculture or whether it's whatever, there's a touch piece that has to happen. As this
Mm-hmm.
merges, there's about $10 trillion even in the U.S. a year in economic growth that is at risk. And think through the calculations. So why don't you pay for your calculator app? And where is your calculator app in GDP?
Yeah.
And why you don't is because prices fall to the marginal cost of production. And as that happens, more and more things can't even be measured in GDP because they give your life abundance. And
Mm-hmm.
there's less things to measure in GDP, and people are moving the denominator of currencies to pretend there's more and push up the remaining things. Well, this is driving faster and faster and faster in an exponential pattern to take more things out.
Yeah.
And so when you do that, then you concentrate that productivity that should flow to society in the form of lower prices in very few hands.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's happening, and that's very much what will likely be a giant fight around AI too, is from a whole bunch of people like Elon Musk that are behind this open movement that want to say we need to regulate this so I can catch up.
Yeah.
That's what's going to that is likely what's going to happen.
Yeah. And that's where I think, in fact, maybe I'll just get your response to this. Is what would be your response to somebody who comes in and says, we need to pause this thing. We need to slow it down. We need to put some brakes on it and make sure that this doesn't get out of hand and that it's, for the good of society rather than the few or something like that. Like, how would you respond to that mentality?
So, number one, I understand the fear, and it's the same
Sure.
response. It's
Sure. Sure.
same response I would have. This is an unknown technology. People can't see how it's going to impact their life, and it's an irrational. It's an additional irrational fear. So I'm going to talk about the rational as well, but it's additional irrational fear because what they're really worried about is the productivity not flowing to them, and how are they going to live?
Yeah.
And that fear is because of the monetary system we live in. That's why I said
Yeah.
before. That's why I said before, financial regulation on top of a monetary system that is designed to steal their money is kind of a crazy concept, but that's exactly what we live in today, right?
Mm-hmm.
We live on in all the financial regulators know the system is insolvent, and they regulate to protect your money and lock you into that insolvent system. It's staggering, but we put up with it, and we think so. Now, if you're stuck in that system and you believe in that system, then you're going to get more scared of AI, because that productivity should be flowing to you. You should every year you should get more abundance and have to work less. That's a
Mm-hmm.
natural world. But you could only measure that from Bitcoin. You couldn't measure it from the existing system. In Bitcoin, that is exactly what's happening. It's describing that world happening. But so if you go to why would there be an additional rational fear? Because you have this massive productivity gain, and people are
Mm-hmm.
wondering what they're going to do, right? When they should wonder, because every year their expenses get higher and higher and higher, when they should get lower and lower and lower. So obviously, in that sort of tinderbox, they're going to believe people who tell them, "I'll save you.
Yeah.
I'm the person who can save you." And I've said this on numerous podcasts
Just give
recently.
them political power. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It reinforces the political power.
Yeah.
If you looked at Argentina or Lebanon or Venezuela, where you have complete rug pulls, people have worked 40 years and all their savings is gone. And why aren't they
That's
all on Bitcoin?
horrifying, man.
Horrifying. And if you see what ends up happening, why aren't they all on Bitcoin? And they're
Yeah.
not. 95% of them stay stuck in the system thinking they can be saved by a different leader that essentially takes away their individual rights and freedoms and consolidates power as a
Mm-hmm.
result. And so this game is going to play on, because of human nature, the inability to see what we're talking about right now is going to play on over and over and over again, even though that there's an open monetary network that any single human being could step into and measure accurately, and get more value every year in their life. So many will stay stuck, and this will flush through many cycles over to Bitcoin. So when we think about hyper Bitcoinization and tomorrow everything changes, good luck. It just won't happen. Or I say the probability of that happening are so remote, that people forget. You could completely wipe their value. They could, let's say, in Argentina right now, their labor rate versus the world is now really low, and
Mm-hmm.
so money will come in and take advantage of that, and everybody in Argentina will go, "Wow, it's working again," and then
Yeah.
they'll be rug pulled again. So
Yeah.
people forget really quickly and that's what will keep this system going.
The
Now,
short-term reactions and the short-term benefits that they grab as fast as they can basically lock them into this same process of being victim of this same system, because the short-term rebound looks like such an opportunity after they get obliterated.
totally,
They stay stuck in that mindset, and because they're on the hamster wheel, they don't even have time to stop, pause, look around, and take a big picture view of any of it,
totally.
because they're running out of food.
Yeah,
you know.
exactly.
So,
So
yeah.
now AI essentially makes these cycles happen at a faster rate. So
Mm-hmm.
let's first, before we go to, I think we need to first, because and then we'll go dive deeper into the AI. But but let's imagine a today, tomorrow, any day in a little while, a country says, okay, we're wiping out our debt. We're either defaulting or we're hyperinflating it away, and now it's stable. What we just described would happen. Right now, their labor rate is cheaper versus the world. Everybody races in, and they do it again. But these cycles will accelerate, because if that country, let's say that country pegged to Bitcoin or created a fiat currency, but they still wanted to run an inflationary model
Mm-hmm.
and run debt, then the debt would default at a faster and faster rate, because of the productivity rate. The productivity rate is way faster than it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
So it would look like what I would say is it would look like Greece, and I'm talking about one country, but it would look like kind of Greece, what's happened over the last 200 years, but at a
Okay.
way faster rate. And
Mm-hmm.
so, and then each one of those cycles will probably create more people that understand Bitcoin, and eventually Bitcoin will transition. But the people living in that Bitcoin world the entire time, they're just measuring essentially they're living in the future today. That's what's, and
Yep.
they're
The
seeing
future is
that.
here. It's just not evenly distributed.
Exactly. And they're
Yeah.
seeing this, and they're seeing the all prices falling to the marginal cost of production in Bitcoin terms. And they're seeing the hope and truth, hope and abundance delivered by that system. It's just not evenly distributed, and that'll happen. So now, if we dig into AI specifically, it's it, it let's first put it in that package and why there's tremendous opportunity right now. If you have
Mm-hmm.
kids, if you have, if you're a business, if you're a new business, why there's just staggering opportunity. But let's put it in the bucket we just described to show the opportunity and why it exists. So what you're doing when you're using some of these tools right now, and I think 1,000 new tools came out last week, many of them free, many of them open source. We'll go there in a second. But
Yeah.
what you're doing,
Yeah.
what, what you're doing is you're taking, let's say there was $100 of value before in the overall
Mm-hmm.
market, and you're taking it to $60, and you're taking most of it because you can do the job way cheaper than the $100 used to do it. And
Mm-hmm.
if you're early in these and understand it better than other people, then that creates massive opportunity for you. Every business, every CEO needs you, like right now, because you can help them make their business more efficient. And if they don't
Mm-hmm.
make their business more efficient, then the person that does make their business more efficient will win the market.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
what that means is some businesses are going to go out of business really quickly because of this. Some are going to use it and consolidate more power. Right. And but that $100 went to 60. And follow the calculator app example that I used to kind of prices follow the marginal cost of production.
Mm-hmm.
With what you're doing, because you're leading this for that organization, you're providing them more value. You'll get more of the 60. And then somebody else will do it to you if you don't
Yeah.
stay ahead of this. And it'll go to 40, and it'll go to 20, and it'll go to 10, and it'll go to free. And then it won't be in GDP anymore. And the entire ride down isn't a light switch that just automatically everything fails. The
Mm-hmm.
entire ride down is a clunky process
It's a
of
clunky incremental, like
clunky process
smashing
of
into things. Yeah.
entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
some working, some not working, all of these bad ideas fighting to be able to do that. And that's
Mm-hmm.
why it's hard to measure it inside. People get caught inside the machine instead of looking back and saying what's happening if you step back and describing that process. So that clunky process, people again means some entrepreneurs are going to create AI companies that are worth zero, but venture capital is going to fund them and give them tons of money. Some people are going to create ideas that are going to be worth nothing, just like the .com 1999 in the .com world. And then
Can you say crypto? I don't.
exactly, exactly, all of these things that just eventually just get because of that economic value get wiped out.
Yeah.
And that path will continue to make it'll make the prices falling to marginal cost of production happen faster.
Mm-hmm.
And so tremendous opportunity to learn some of these tools as fast as you can. I have my kids right now that at least an hour a day, and they have to present me in their words what they discovered that was kind of mind blowing today, because I want them and
That's awesome.
so they're each creating kind of a list, and in their own words what they find. And actually, I sent you one that we want to pull up.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, but And that's because I want them to understand this technology and what to do, because they'll have more value to other people. So I want them to really understand this, and the people that do will have a massive edge because most people won't. Very few will take that step, but it accelerates the trends we're talking about, and that's why Bitcoin is so important. Additionally,
Yeah, 100%. And this is actually why, this is a large part of the reason why I felt really obligated to do this show, is because I had been really going down the rabbit hole of these tools. And like you say, there's such a short timeline here to take advantage of these as broadly and as deeply as possible. And if we can get if we can get the philosophy of Bitcoiners, of self-hosting, of running your own, of like integrating and just building and, you know, kind of not looking back sort of thing, just like moving into this like with full force, so to speak, then the tools that Bitcoiners have, Lightning Network, Noster, Keat, like these things that we have to organize this technology and build this as a community, as an ecosystem, could put us so far. We already have an advantage, I think. We already have like a kind of a rather significant improvement over the organization and the cooperation in the space and the propensity to just build, that I think is still kind of being resisted in a lot of different areas. And then put on top of that an instant payments network that is that has no center,
yeah,
that can't be controlled, that can't be paused. And you've got a recipe for something really exciting, I think, for sharing ideas and providing value for it, like providing
yeah.
sats for those
Can,
ideas to be shared.
I totally agree with you. And by the way, to me, in Bitcoin, and I think even in my book, you could probably see I held Bitcoin before I wrote the book, but I bought a lot more as I was writing the book and
Yeah.
started. But even after that, I would say if I if I'm being honest, at that time, I was wondering, even after, there must be something else that I'm missing on Bitcoin. There must be
Mm-hmm.
some other way to be able to organize society in a way that allows this to happen. And then furthermore, I thought, okay, what are the probabilities? In fact, I was trying to think through all of the. I wasn't trying to reinforce my beliefs. I was trying to disprove them. So in Bitcoin, I spent a lot of time. What are the attack vectors? What would they look like? Where
Mm-hmm.
and constantly trying to disprove my hypothesis and that, and essentially taking my probabilities of failure of the network down from maybe 1.5 when I started down to under zero point 0.1 today. So I can almost say I think Bitcoin's inevitable. It's going to happen, but it's going to be it's really going to be bumpy on the way through. At least that's my probabilities. The when I think, and that's why even in ego death, when we're building, now we think, wow, okay, now you have a stable, secure foundation that can take the weight of the world. That you don't have to worry about a system that's 10,000 times bigger. Every attack that they try to do to it makes it stronger.
Yeah.
So, so now you can actually really invest your time and move this forward. Where you're right about AI being an accelerator for both, but we have to. To me, we have to decompartmentalize those, because what people don't realize in the existing system that they're spending time in is AI is a massive is. Imagine today, Elon Musk says ensure people believe that I'm a star,
Mm-hmm.
right? Give the AI an algorithm, and every single thing you click on, or if he says ensure people believe in the fiat system, or somebody else does, they
Mm-hmm.
believe that, then every single thing you click on and the amount of time you spend there will be a further implication into the AI system, and you won't know your mind is changing. You will
Mm-hmm.
think it's your free thought that is doing this, and you'll only see certain things. And then if it didn't work, if you bounced out of it, it'll learn faster what you need to do, the hook to be able to bring you in to believe it. And it'll be a slow transition. You won't even know. So that is the world we're living in. And it'll fake people. It'll fake your friends. It'll fake you. You won't know. And we're on the precipice of how fast that is. So the consolidation of data and the consolidation of these centralized platforms can produce tremendous harm and create kind of that wave that recycles and actually reinforce the existing system. And it's a big
Yeah,
deal. So yes, all these tools can also be used for good, and move forward. But we have to realize today, Bitcoin is really kind of small in relation to the overall global economic system,
sure.
and more people need to understand it, why that's important. And these tools also help people consolidate more power faster, both because of fear, and because of what I just said.
Yeah. This is also why, like, I increasingly think like the adoption of these things through like APIs and integration into platforms. Like I have one that's an API with a smaller company, but they're essentially doing the exact same thing with my notes that has an app called Obsidian that literally like the AI reads all my notes and then I can make contextual links and stuff, and it's insanely useful. But it is somebody else's computer.
Totally.
You know, it is
It's getting rolled up at a higher abstraction level,
exactly.
over and over and over. And those different layers that are taking your information and, are at a higher extraction level, are
And making
consolidated.
sense of it before
Exactly.
putting it in the eyes of some perceived
Yep.
authority or central
Totally.
controller, which makes it all the more dangerous. And like this is why I think the trend toward decentralized platforms for protocols over platforms and protocols over centralized servers is one of the most it already was, I think, the most important focus, and now just with AI landing and basically being at the place that it's at has just accelerated that importance in my mind so much. It's just like, holy crap, like we need this now. Like we can't delay at all. We need to separate ourselves from these platforms or we could get trapped. If
Yep.
we integrate these things with our lives and get 5x 10x more productive in all the various ways, that's a whole lot. You can't undo that. Like you get used to that lifestyle or that way of
We're,
doing things.
we're worse. That
Yeah.
productivity is then captured in the state because they give you
Yes.
UBI, or they give you more, and you think your life is getting better. And the next step, you're locked into a system that you can't get out of.
You're getting
You're in.
shared a small fraction of the actual productivity gain, and instead it's going to a centralized institution that's using it more for violence and control over the entire architecture, and then you're simultaneously becoming dependent on it. So
Exactly.
the only way that you get your share of the resources of society and productivity is by funneling through this giant system of power first.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
and there is just no way you'll be able to do that. You won't even know it's happening to you. Most of the planet won't know it's happening to them. That's exactly it. And so
yeah.
that's what I think Bitcoiners already see, or some are starting to see,
Hmm.
um, and because Bitcoin essentially solves that paradox we started, before. We wouldn't vote for it. Like, if you just think, if a politician today came out and said, every year your real income is going to go up, but your income is going to go down in fiat terms, and your house is going to get cheaper, and like, there's no way that politician would get elected, because
No.
our selfish nature, we think we can grow forever, and
Hmm.
we think we can because we've always lived in that system. So when we look around at other people, what other people should do, look at yourself. If you're spending more of your time in the fiat system, believing what we just said, you're a cog in that system that's
Hmm.
actually going to take more and more of your more and more of your value. You're actually making it happen. If you're yelling at the fiat system, if you're spending, like, if you march on Wall Street and break all the windows, then go home, The windows get
Yeah.
repaired. Where does money come from to repair the windows? It came from you,
If you had any savings.
you making the system stronger.
Yeah.
And so, so all of those actions just tend to make that happen. And Bitcoin is the opposite system. And people should be. I can't tell people what they should do, but I can tell. For me, I realized that, and I wanted to spend more of my time creating the world I wanted to see.
Yeah. Got a question for you. Have you ever read the book Bullshit Jobs?
Yep.
So it's so funny to me. I'm about like 3/4 of the way through the book right now. That's this week's book, and I cannot believe how much it is tied to just the idea of financing. Like it's such a fiat product, you know,
Yep.
as to why this happens. But essentially, the thesis for the audience is that roughly 40%. And granted, and he has a really good argument as to why you can essentially trust the people in the jobs as kind of the highest arbiter of whether or not the job is in fact bullshit. Like it's just pointless work.
Yep.
It's busy work, like in school. You know, you
Totally.
just do a lot of homework that doesn't mean anything and you're not actually learning anything. It's just so that you have an assignment. Um, and this is actually proliferated throughout the entire economy. There's a feedback loop that I see in trying to imagine how this has come about, and following kind of the game theory of financing everything and political fiat and kind of the toxic bigness of corporations and the government, the political institutions. Um, and that, and I loved his description that it's kind of like a pseudo feudalism. Is that, you know, you go back to like feudal kings and these
Yep.
things, they essentially would have so much value, they have so much money that they confiscated from their servants or from their serfs, um, that they would spend tons of money on just looking like they were important,
Yep.
like, and looking like they were doing things or they were representative of this, that, or the other, or to have people standing around the room that are all just not doing anything and they're silent for the whole party because these are your lackeys. And all of it was posturing. And that is what I feel like has happened, is that we actually have the productivity to, we have the insane amount of wealth and value that we create in the economy to give everybody a 15-hour work week, to get everybody a 10-hour work week.
Less than that, it would be less
Yeah.
than 10 hours a week globally,
Yeah.
and they would have more than they have today globally.
But so much is concentrated. I mean, when you just loan out $1 trillion to like a handful of giant corporations, what happens is they soak up all the resources and suddenly they're all psychotically expensive. And I just went to the store yesterday or the day before with 6 bags of groceries. It cost me $450. 6 bags of
Wow.
groceries. And all of that gets sucked up, and they have too much money and they don't even know what to do with it. So they create this culture around like, we're going to hire equity and diversity consultants, and we're
Yep.
going to hire, like, we're just going to hire nonsense that, you know, lackeys and people who are just standing there to make us look good and doing work and then creating bullshit work to duct tape some incompetent person's like failure to do their job. And literally, and I love like just kind of the overall thesis, and I highly recommend this book to anybody. Particularly, actually read it after The Price of Tomorrow. Read The Price of Tomorrow to understand like the monetary and like deflationary cycles from technology's perspective that we're going through, and then you kind of see why these bullshit jobs are actually quote unquote sustainable in the current system, and then read Bullshit Jobs. But that you could essentially eliminate half of all jobs in the United States, close to at least, and you wouldn't meaningfully change productivity whatsoever.
Yeah, and that's happening faster. So it'll be
Yeah.
3/4, then it'll be 90%, and all of those prices should fall as a result. You just don't. So you don't live in actually an economy. When people I think they're misusing the economy. You live in a
Mm-hmm.
control structure.
Yeah.
It's like there is nothing in the economy that is actually based on first principles.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a control structure, and we believe in that control structure, that essentially that $400 trillion of debt is solvent, and we're deciding every day we live in that system and spend more of our time in that system. We're deciding with our time it's okay if you pick my pocket at an ever increasing rate to make that whole. Right. That's what we're deciding. So that is not an economy. That is when people have this belief that inflation is required for a productive economy, what informs the belief in the first place? So what you're saying is, I believe that it's okay to steal. I'd have no vote for it. I believe it's okay to steal, have hidden theft in money at 2% a year. And 3% a year is probably okay too, but 4% is starting to get tight. What they're really saying is, I won't notice my pocket being picked by 2% a year.
Yeah.
And then they're conflating that with needing to have inflation for a productive economy. There is no law. There is no law according to physics that you have to have inflation for a productive economy. You have to have inflation for a productive debt economy. And that's what's changing. And
To
people
make unsustainable debt sustainable.
exactly.
It's the only way. You just have to steal to pay for it.
You just have to steal to pay for it.
You have
And
to counterfeit.
but people haven't asked the question, what would something else look like? But they should start asking that question, because what we're talking about with AI and what we're talking about here is essentially, it accelerates these trends at a rate that, and it doesn't accelerate the trend. The trend's been the same all the way through, but it's measured on a log function, and because people are measuring linear, for them it'll look like, oh my God, what just happened?
Yeah, this linear brains in an exponential system.
Exactly, this came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Do you want to throw on that little video just to, and then we can.
Yes, I was fighting with trying to figure out how to. My Camera Studio doesn't, like, I can show it in the actual video, but if you want to watch it again, like while we watch it, and I'll just edit over it.
Yeah, sure.
Because I can't. It doesn't seem to have a screen sharing right here in the thing, and I thought
that works.
it did. So
we'll talk about it a little bit afterwards.
Today we're introducing Wondercraft AI, which lets anyone create studio quality podcasts in seconds. Let's say we're starting a daily podcast that recaps top Hacker News posts from the previous day. Give it a name. Scroll Hacker News to find the top posts and their reactions to use as your input. And throw it in the Wonder Machine. Next, just sit back and watch as artificial intelligence creates a script for you, including an intro, outro, and show notes. Okay, we got it. Cool, huh? Let's choose our host. Don't like my voice?
Not a problem. I can take it from here. If you want something more personal, we got you. As simple as uploading a 30-second clip of you talking.
Did it work? Much better. Okay, let's choose some music for the intro. Something mellow. No, maybe some country? I'll just add my own. Let's check the script one last time. Yeah, this is better. I think now the Wonder Robot is ready to give you a studio quality podcast. Just ask it.
Welcome to the Hacker News Recap, where we bring you an exclusive overview of the top 10 posts on Hacker News every day. In this episode, we'll dive into Semaphore, a full-body keyboard that revolutionizes our interaction with technology, explore find.com, a developer-focused search engine powered by GPT-4, and learn about Izzy Miller's AI experiment replacing college-era group chats.
Man, that's so crazy. I watched it yesterday, and I just had to watch it again to be fresh, because God, just I mean, and this is actually one thing that I wanted to do, because like Bitcoin Audible is, I do lots of reading of other people's stuff, and now I have 10,000 hours of audio that I could train to do that reading for me. But I didn't want to do that because one of the things that I get out of Bitcoin Audible is I read all of this content. Like I get to like piece by piece really assess it, so I feel like I know what I'm talking about. I have learned more from Bitcoin Audible than I think any listener, anybody else, because I have to read it 3 times.
I buy that, by the way, and
Yeah.
that's why you're so good. That's why you're so good in this space.
So I'm not going to do that to Bitcoin Audible, but one of the things that I wanted to really explore with AI Unchained, because this is not only going to be a show like discovering and like exploring the ideas and the philosophy around it, but I want to be able to play around with all the tools and how many AI tools can I use to help streamline and make this show good. So this would be like the perfect sort of thing that to write my descriptions or whatever, and then just say is like AI wrote the description from the transcript, like just so that people can see exactly how these tools can be used. But holy crap, the fact that it would just like it just grabs. I mean, you think about like how many different layers of things that one tool just did.
Like, yeah,
All the way to publish. All the way to publish.
All the way to publish, music, everything else, intro, outro, and so most people, probably many people listening to this podcast right now, that would have been their first interaction with something like that, and it'll blow their brains. And that is one tiny, tiny little abstraction of a little bit of this power into one type of thing, and it's exploding everywhere. Like I said, I think in the last 2 weeks, 1,000 new tools like that. And what's happening as well is
so crazy.
And that's why it's moving at such a rate. I would recommend everybody download ChatGPT for all to their computer, because you'll have the entire code base on your desktop. So you could actually see what the one, if you're looking at ChatGPT version versus your desktop, you could see the biases versus one versus the other. But that means if you don't have internet access, or for some reason it cuts off, your internet access is cut off, effectively you have the entire world's knowledge base
sitting on your computer.
Compressed on your computer. It's staggering. So that would be something I would do. But if you've probably, I don't know, do you have the beta version of ChatGPT with web browsing yet?
With web browsing?
Yeah, with web browsing.
Not sure. I mean, I'm paying for ChatGPT or whatever, and I use it a lot, and I'm trying to right now get the LLM stuff running on my own computer, but I'm not sure what you mean with web browsing. Is that something?
Yeah, so look that up after this.
Okay.
But I'm not in the beta yet. I'm on the list in the beta, but I've seen different people using the beta. It effectively, because ChatGPT 4 is September 2021 is the cutoff date. Imagine taking all that information and then allowing it to ask its own questions on recent events and all the knowledge it's accumulating every day. That's with web browsing. And what I've seen out of that is it literally, if you thought ChatGPT blew your mind, it's just how fast it's going. So I'm on the waiting list, but I've also seen people that have used it already and some of the things it's capable of. It makes ChatGPT 4 look like a toy.
Good God. Like these are on the order of weeks, man. It's like waiting 3 days to get a podcast about this out is breaking. Like you're already behind. Like with your editing, you have to have AI to edit your stuff, because otherwise you're behind. Everything's out of date immediately.
Exactly. And so it is going to be increasingly hard that's why your podcast is going to be really good, but it's going to be really hard to keep up with what's happening. And staying at the edge of what's happening and finding the tools that are most valuable in what you're doing is going to be a superpower. It's going, and a lot of those tools, like if you look at Midjourney today, probably many people on this haven't even used Midjourney today. They should try it. But then
version 5 is pretty crazy. It's a huge improvement. Yeah,
it's incredible.
Hands finally look like hands.
Yeah, exactly. But then if they want that and they realize, okay, well, that's, if I want to use it all the time, I might have to pay $20 or $30 a month. But then if they did that, there's 100 other tools like that. There's one called Blue Willow that's not quite as good as that yet, but it's completely free.
Yeah.
So what we're describing right now is the process at a way faster rate of why AI will also be decentralized and free and everything else, because Midjourney comes out and it provides or OpenAI comes out with this and they charge you $20 a month, and then somebody builds onto that and builds something else that they take it cheaper, and it decentralizes further. So the process that we're describing here and all of these, what will likely happen at first is people will only go to the paid tools. Right. And they'll go, oh, wow, this is so, because they'll see those will have more marketing budgets and everything else. But some of the other tools are growing just a little bit behind. And they're literally free. So you can put together any sort of number of tools here and drive that productivity into your life. But more of that productivity, if you understand how to use them, you're going to be super valuable for businesses or creating a new business that can deliver more value to society in a different way.
Yeah. Yeah. There's this is also why I don't think there is this moat. I think AI is going to move so quickly and things will be adopted by the open source community and give basically such a vast array of options on how to utilize it so quickly that your thesis or whatever, that the marginal cost, I mean, the price will
price
fall
falls
to
to
the
the
marginal
marginal
cost.
cost.
AI is going to be universal and free quicker than anything else that we use right now.
Yeah.
Like that, you're just not going to be able to charge for this.
Yeah.
And Open Assistant is one that I started playing around with 2 or 3 days ago. And it's a completely open source model and data set that is based on, it's specifically around alignment with the human feedback learning mechanism.
Yeah.
So you're training it as you use it. And you can, I haven't, right now I'm just using it on their server or whatever, just to kind of get a feel for it, because I'm trying to figure out which one I want to use as the main one on the new computer I'm building, all specifically for this and for the show and everything. But the open source model, they basically used had a broad survey of like tons and tons of different users, and in just preference from the user, the matching to Chat GPT's responses is almost spot on. It was 48.3% versus 51.7%. So Chat GPT had a very small edge against the open source version. But the thing is that the open source version can learn very quickly, and it's learning from a huge ecosystem of people that are building extensions and doing micro learnings, and you can integrate it in no time. I mean, you look at like some of these websites, every single day, there's like 40 new models or weight changes or LoRa's, the low rank adjustments or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like so many different variations that are being integrated and then regrowing the model. And open source is doing with way less resources and way less parameters what is comparable to these giant Google and Meta and Open AI models that are costing millions and millions of dollars and oogles of parameters. That's actually what tomorrow's episode 2 is going to be about, because there was that leak from the Google engineer.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to talk about. Yeah. Google has no moat, and neither does OpenAI, right? And then comparing these models and how close they are already. And this is 2 months in. This is 2 months from.
It's been no time. It has been no time.
It's been, and so the rate of change that's coming back, and this isn't even the rate of change. This is just essentially deep learning models doing the same thing they've already done with more parameters and more layers.
Yeah.
There's going to be an insight somewhere along that changes this insight and makes it even like order of magnitude better at some point along this. So yeah, this is inevitable. It's inevitable that it merges with machines. It inevitable. And when people think about merging with machines, that merging with machines, not just when when people kind of have a fear response, they think about their Boston Robotics dog or something like that, that type of intelligence in that. But now imagine any sort of machine as well that you could 3D print, that all different types of over time, that the marginal cost of production there starts to fall at the same rate because now it's been put into technology and it falls at the same rate. So that removes labor. My friend put up a slide the other day, and I can't remember the date, but he said all tasks at a superhuman level with his robots in a number of years would be done at under $5 an hour. All. Wow. So imagine hiring an unlimited somebody who could do something better than all humans at that rate, that never had to take a break, didn't have to have a lunch break, union, everything else, at under $5 an hour. And so if we don't allow the productivity to flow to us in the form of lower prices, we're in a lot of trouble. And that's that's why Bitcoin as well is so important in this transition.
I really think AI is a tool that can be horrifying and can be the greatest thing that ever happened to us. And it is entirely dependent on the network of economic communication, which means that with Bitcoin, AI is the greatest thing we've ever had. With fiat, AI is the worst thing that's going to ever happen to us, you know?
Totally. So here's a different way for people that have fear of this, to be able to think about this. If you're consolidating all the power in one person or a couple people who can make all the decisions for you, that seems like fear. So that seems like that seems like North Korea's model, right? They reach into your family. Nothing can be said. Nothing can do it without that control structure all the way into your individual actions. And you have to believe the supreme leader and what the supreme leader, and that model would look like that, right? And some people think that, it wouldn't be that bad, but you can see individual rights and freedoms on a path going that way. In other words, if you play that model, China will win. They're better at it than the US, right? China will win, and that's what the model will look like. I suspect that human beings won't want that model, and more will understand this. And what you're saying is the free market always wins over time because we can't see the things we don't know. And we can't see what we want until we experience something that it was introduced by an entrepreneur that then changes our ideas. And if you consolidate all power into somebody's hands that says, I'm going to block that from happening because you have to believe that, then just like in North Korea, living standards have to go down because nobody can see all of those economic actions and ideas. And so the other end of the spectrum is the end of the spectrum we're talking about on Bitcoin, that the byproduct of that end of the spectrum is driving prices down faster and faster, so we all don't have to work as hard to be able to live in that world. And it's all of those essentially accruing to the value creators for a time until their value that they delivered also goes to zero and they have to attack something else. But the byproduct of that is for those people, even if they as they fall out and they don't have a job, you don't need a job to pay for the oxygen you're breathing. Right. And it's for the same reason. And so you have these two massive ends of the spectrum. And I suspect that eventually the US is going to understand this, and other nations are going to understand this, and they're going to move quicker to the system that allows more freedoms, more economic freedoms that describe this language, right, that we're talking about, and allow that productivity to fall. But it's a group. That's that phase transition that we're in the middle of, and most people are measuring it as a snapshot of a movie, and they're instead of watching the entire movie play out.
They're not seeing the motion; they're seeing the individual frame. Yeah. And the crazy thing about this too is that when you have a country, like the different environments and jurisdictions or whatever that will take different approaches, the feedback loop for aligning with this, for like El Salvador, I think is a prime example, is going through another Bitcoin bull market while AI technology, and they're in the process of eliminating all taxes on technological innovation in their country. The feedback loop in a year or two,
Totally.
the absolute, almost horrific explosion of prosperity that could happen in that country would literally make the rest of the world panic in attempting to take it. Like how did they beat us on this? Like the ability to shift economic and political power in this environment, like things, there are going to be black swan events all over. Like we have really no idea what this is going to look like in 4 to 10 years. Like holy crap, right? And because of that, I think with the accelerating pace of technology and the breakdown of trust in legacy institutions and the model that we have used and thought worked, but now we're paying for, means that power can shift insanely fast. Like in a matter of months, we can really displace huge amount. Like the disruption, it's like BitTorrent towards the media industry in the early 2000s. Is that like we just, like if they don't adjust, it's just not going to. They're not going to have anything at the other end of this. They're fighting a reality that is impossible. It's like standing in front of a freight train.
Yeah, and that's it. The entire reality that they're living in, or in, you could say many people in the U.S. are living in, is a reality that their money needs to be debased at an exponential rate. And if in the U.S., it's a way less than it needs to be in other places in the world, and to pretend that you live in something that's called an economy instead of a control structure. That's what it looks like. So this is going to change. I wish it wasn't going to, but it's going to hurt a lot of people, and a whole bunch of people are going to react through fear and essentially vote away their individual rights and freedoms because they're in a state of fear or they've been rug pulled. And somebody else is going to come in and say, I'm the savior. I'm going, and it can't be saved from a person. It has to be saved from a system, and this is a new economic system imposing itself that takes advantage, that is effectively everybody that's joining is encoding the best of humanity into it, and it's and the output is the best for humanity is what happens over time.
There's two things I want to try to hit on. One thing that, like, I think part of the reason why I don't naturally respond to I mean, there are moments where I'm afraid, like without a doubt, but my normal tendency is to be optimistic about this. And I think it's because of my perspective on everything prior to AI. Is I think people have a tendency to personify these huge systems that we're in. We personify the market, we personify political institutions and huge groups of people, and they just come with this giant baggage of this is what all of these people think and this is what all these people believe. When in reality, if you take a sobering look at it, is that these things are so vastly complex and interwoven and interactive with each other that we are already a part of huge, complex, multifaceted systems and means of organizations and networks that we can't even possibly comprehend one tiny little itty bitty fraction of. Like, we're already a part of something that is so out of our control. We just pretend like we can control it. We just kind of have this ignorance.
More, so, my optimistic side is this: we are all connected globally. We are all connected. Every single one of us. It's a vibration of energy, and we're all connected in an economic system in service of making our lives better. And the economic system we live in right now is essentially based on fraud that disconnects us and needs to divide us further to be able to create that. And we can't see that, but we are all connected. My Tesla required cobalt from a mine in Uganda, let's say, and that person was making $1 a day, and under terrible living conditions to be able to make me afford my Tesla. We are all connected. We just right now the economic system we live in is if you say the West, we exploit the countries that by the same function to be able to consolidate our wealth, and then we don't see that same exploitation to the 0.1 percenters that do it to us. And we yell at the 0.1 percenters while failing to realize that our entire economic wealth is driven by actually exploiting somebody else. And so what would the world look like if we were all in that system, feeding that system? What would be the mirror reflection of society? It would be pretty easy if everything floated on theft. You would see, and it had to expand exponentially to be able to deal with what we're. You can see literally everything. The mirror reflection of the world is a mirror reflection of that interconnectedness of us.
Yeah.
Based on theft, and what would it look like in a new system where that interconnectedness was based on truth? It's pretty easy for me to see what it would look like too. It would look very different, and our minds would change. And that's why I say that our ability to deliver more value to other people and create more value would do so, and prices would fall as a result.
Yeah. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I have two little things that I want to touch on before we close this out. And obviously, we might have to get you back on if you're up for it.
Anytime, my friend. Anytime.
Yeah, hell yeah. But one thing I wanted to get a little bit more local with what the consequences of this might look like is for an individual's job. So we talk about we don't have to worry about the wage we have when we're buying our air, is how does the job environment, I think the idea of a job is antiquated already. But what does productivity from an individual perspective potentially look like to you? Like how do you think this transition will occur? I mean, I have my own kind of general ideas or theories, but is there something today that kind of analogizes or you think is a trend that's going to continue, that is where the old way of doing things and the old way of thinking about jobs and occupations and stuff is going to shift? Do you have a concrete example?
It's just an acceleration. So if you were early on the internet and you understood that power of what was happening on the internet versus what people believed before that, you saw the same thing at a slower rate, right? You saw a whole bunch of economic actors. Now remember, the internet as we know it today was kind of layer 4 was HTTP, which would have been 1989. And then remember what the internet looked like in the 90s. So I was building to it at that point. I saw this as a revolutionary technology and breakthrough. But remember what it looked like and how slow that was. The iPhone that everybody can't believe they haven't had all their life, right, was only 2007. And that was on top of the same stack. What we're doing right now, right, on this video, this was on top of the same stack, the same protocol stack that came much later as it got easier and easier to use. Why Blockbuster could stay stuck is because they didn't see how fast that rate change was happening underneath. And they didn't see that once it hit a certain point, that their entire economic value that they had created was a noose around their neck because it was reliant on the old system. And so that's happening right now at a rate that we almost can't comprehend. Will it be distributed to all of society that fast? No, because there's two major waves happening. One is what's happening in Bitcoin. Bitcoin is measuring that productivity. And 99% of the population on this planet are stuck in the old system, measuring productivity from the old system and getting their pocket picked. So they can't see what we're talking about. But more and more people are driving over, and that's creating a network effect both on Bitcoin and layer 2 on Bitcoin, which is now two network effects reinforcing on each other. That's actually driving more people on. So that's one big trend, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is your denominator, and what does this look like, and where are you going to put your time in to create economic value?
Mm-hmm.
I would say move as much time as you can to the new system. So one of those new systems is Bitcoin, and everything that's going to happen on top. There's tons of opportunity there because you're literally building a new peer-to-peer internet from the ground up. And that peer-to-peer internet is tied to energy instead of an abstraction monetary system that abstracts energy. So it's literally tied to energy, and it's a new build. It's such a big deal, but some people on this podcast will already know that, but they should move as much time as they can out of the fiat system and into this system, because they'll see opportunity galore. But it's early. It's like the internet was early, and some of those companies are going to blow up. They're going to be bad ideas. There's going to be competition, and so if you looked at that and you said, where are we with Lightning? We're probably realistically, if you're saying with Lightning, where Lightning started, where it is today, you're probably, if you use the same analogy where HTTP was in '89, Lightning is the start of the internet.
Yeah,
the new peer-to-peer internet, and so it's only 91.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
Right, right. It's only 91, and now that'll happen at a way faster rate than it did over the time frame for internet adoption, because all these trends are accelerating. But if you just use that same thing, that's actually the type of opportunity, and it just is so rich in opportunity. It's so exciting in opportunity. In fact, that's why we're investing there, because I just can't believe people are missing this. So that's the one, let's say, one giant trend. The other trend is what we're talking about on this show, the AI trend that's exploding. And every single person, this is going to sound negative, but if you don't know this, you're going to get run over by it. It is so important. I actually, right now with my kids, I care more that they do this than their school. Way more.
100%. 100%.
Way
I
more.
mean, you could argue school is nonsense anyway, but it's preparing people for a world that doesn't exist. It didn't exist 20 years ago.
Exactly. And so this is critical that people start to understand and gain some, and it doesn't actually take much. Have curiosity. Just same thing is for in Bitcoin. We understand this because most people, to be able to understand Bitcoin, had to go through curiosity, and they had to break a whole bunch of models. Their prism of the world had to change, and Bitcoin didn't change. They changed as a result of seeing kind of a new world unfolding, and it drove them into economics, it drove them into game theory, it drove them into thermodynamics, it drove them into a whole bunch of different systems.
The number of disciplines around it just it's endless. It's so
astonishing
crazy.
because it's such a crazy discovery that has never existed before. So those people that were open, curious, had an advantage in understanding Bitcoin. Same thing is true for AI. If you remove the fear, this is coming anyways, no matter what, and you say, I want to learn this. I don't want to be triggered by the fear, which will stop you from learning it. I just want to take 15 minutes a day, half an hour a day, and I'm going to an hour a day. Then it might turn into 2 hours a day. In no time, you will be an expert. You'll be able to teach others, and you'll be really exciting because you'll be interesting. Because you'll made your life better, and a lot of those tools, you'll make your life better. You'll gain more productivity in your life, and you could apply that to any sort of number of businesses. And it's just a tool. If you want to learn the tool, you'll be better at or the broad set of tools. You'll be better at those tools. So I'd recommend, don't wait. Maybe that's a plug for your show, but exactly
AI Unchained.
But exactly what you're doing, Guy, and exactly what you did in Bitcoin. Essentially, you created a whole bunch of value for other people to understand how fast something was moving, and you actually provided value in their life, and you got paid for creating value in their life because you knew this, and it provided a whole bunch of value in your life in Bitcoin. Yeah. You're doing the exact same thing.
I think I got more out of Bitcoin Audible than anybody else. I really do. And I think it was for me.
I say the same thing in my book. I say the same thing about Bitcoiners all the time. People thank me all the time, and I say, I think I get more out of this community than I give. It's just one of those. It's so amazing. It's such a crazy community. But when you think about that in giving and creating value for others, you actually, it's amazing what can happen. And that's what you're doing. So what you did with Bitcoin Audible, what you're doing with this show. And if you create a lot of value for people, they're going to follow the show, and you're going to get paid an increment of that value over time by providing value to others. That's the way the world works.
Yeah.
Should work.
It should work. That's with good money. That is the way the world works. Yeah. That's the way the world turns. Now, I wanted to would this be a fair summation of what you were talking about in like take advantage of this and stuff? Because a lot of people have this idea that evolution is the survival of the fittest, and there is, and I think that's a lot of people will say this or try to correct that it's not about being the strongest. It's not about being the biggest, the alpha or whatever. It's about survival of the most adaptable.
Adaptable. Exactly.
And so the question is, the world is changing aggressively. Are you adapting? Like, to ask yourself, are you adapting to it? And if you aren't, figure out how you can.
Yeah. And realize that every time you're looking at something and you get triggered by fear, that is typically a control response to drive you to that trigger.
Yeah.
So nothing, it doesn't have to my wife says this, but you can go in any depth on any sort of topic, and you don't get scared about it. 'Cause I just openly look at the topic. Mm-hmm. And then I want to discuss the topic. And even in the worst case on that topic, I would rather know what the worst case is and chase it all the way to the ground.
100%.
And then assign different probabilities of my life and look at that. But I want to know. I don't want to. But it doesn't. Knowing doesn't hurt me at all. I just want to know. I'm curious. I'm if you can organize your life that way, and you know the worst case scenario of something, whatever it happens to be, and you actually ask it a first principle all the way down to the ground, what the worst could look like, and you go, okay, now I know that. How do I optimize my time for a better scenario?
Yeah. Very last thing, and you don't have to give a long answer because this is basically on topic with everything we've discussed already. But I asked ChatGPT if it could ask you one question, what would it ask?
Oh, wow.
And I gave it the description of the show and everything that we're doing. So this is what ChatGPT wants to know. What steps do you envision individuals and communities taking to foster a decentralized AI ecosystem that empowers individuals and safeguards against the risks of the centralized control, while still reaping the benefits of the advancing AI technologies?
You fight good with more good. You fight evil with good. You don't fight evil by blocking the good. This is what, and so I choose to see the world as mostly really great people stuck in a system. And I look to empower those people, even this podcast, hopefully a couple of people, or who could take this message and change from being stuck in a system with negative incentives to starting to see the opportunities in a system with positive incentives, which means the good in us expands. And that's and it gives license for the best people to win, and they expand. This is so that's what I would do, and that's what I do. The system's moving there anyways. I just want more people as fast as possible to understand where that system, because they'll be better protected from it, or they'll be better protected from what's going to happen. And they'll be the lights, they'll be the beacons for more people to come on, because they're more people to come onto the system, because they're doing it, I would say, less selfishly and more selflessly, and humanity will move that way.
Awesome. Amen. I totally agree. Dude, thank you for being the first guest on AI Unchained. I think this is a great opening to the show. And I'm excited. I like, it is scary. It's, change is not something that's always easy to deal with. But I think we do have the tools. I think if we have the right philosophy and the right mentality to this, I think we can I just think there's so much opportunity, like you said.
It's in our nature. It's in our nature. This is going to be the way this is going to roll out. Is just move there earlier, and how you'll help a whole bunch of other people get there. So I love what you're doing. I'm super honored to be the first guest on it. Congratulations.
Hell yeah. Dude, I will dude, thank you again, and I'll see you in a week. Like,
awesome.
A few days.
Awesome.
Dude, man, that was fun. I had an awesome time with Jeff Booth. I hope you enjoyed that conversation. And do not forget to subscribe to this show on either YouTube or the podcast app that you are using so that you do not miss it, because we are going to have a lot more content to come. This is just getting started, and I am so excited for the things that we are going to unpack here. And do not forget to check out Jeff Booth and The Price of Tomorrow, his book. It is phenomenal. If you have not read it, it is an absolute favorite of mine, and that's coming from someone who has read a lot. I mean, a lot, and a lot of books. So that's kind of my thing. And if you haven't explored Bitcoin and you want to go down the Bitcoin rabbit hole, that is why we have Bitcoin Audible. I will have a link to a playlist for the Basics series, because it's probably the best introduction into what Bitcoin is. And check out our sponsors as well for the Bitcoin Audible show, and they are helping out with the launch of this show as well, AI Unchained. Swan Bitcoin, the best onboarding for Bitcoin. So if you're just trying to get some Bitcoin, definitely go to Swan. If you have a debit card that doesn't pay you Bitcoin, doesn't pay you sats back, you are failing, and you should get a Fold card. And then lastly, you're going to want to keep your Bitcoin safe, and hardware security, hardware devices are where it is at for Bitcoin security, and CoinKite has you covered. CoinKite.com or BitcoinAudible.com/coldcard will take you right there. All of that stuff will be in the description if you want to check it out, as well as the few things that we have covered in this show with links to explore some of those AI tools, and we will get into some specifics next week. And I've already got a couple of other conversations lined up. I think you guys are really going to love this. I am really, really, really excited to finally be doing this. So thank you guys for joining me, and I will catch you on the next episode, on the next show, the next podcast of AI Unchained. Thanks for listening, guys.